Hello everybody, we're on top of Karish house, because I didn't want to do this while I stood looking at him. Welcome to a Let's Discuss video, in which I will have this is a non-gameplay video, in which I'll just have a bit of a chat about the Morrowind LP, some points you guys have raised, how I feel it's going, and then we'll have a read of all of these books that we have. So we've got quite a lot of reading to do, so we'll get right in there. So first of all, you guys, I think I've raised like two major points. One of them is kind of like a shield spell to protect against the elements. Someone suggested one to go into Red Mountain with, what someone suggested, and this has been like something that's happened in the past as well, to protect against the rain, to cast it while it is raining. And yep, absolutely, they're on the list of many other kind of like little kind of tweaks that I can make. The only thing is with the raining thing, with the shield spell, I suppose it's not a big thing, but I have to learn a shield spell. First of all, I don't know if I have one. They're called like second barrier and third barrier and all that kind of thing. I think actually maybe I do have one. Shield weak. There we go. I do have one. So I could make a 1 point thing. The only issue I kind of have is the duration. So a 1 point shield spell, duration 2 minutes. I don't know how much magicka that would be, but I'd have to cast it every 2 minutes and stuff. I guess it wouldn't be any worse than the hovering that I do, but that just actually has some function, like getting from A to B. It would, of course, increase our alteration, which is, you know, it's gone by quite a bit since we started. So I'll just leave this up so you guys can see how Karish is doing in terms of his stats and everything anyway. But yeah, good ideas, and it's something that I may well do. The reason that I kind of haven't yet is because of the money issue, which leads on to the next thing. Mostly to do with this item right here, the wizard's staff. And do we sell it? Do we not sell it? So I'm kind of torn with it, because I said I would sell it, and then you guys seem to think that, well, some of you, because there is, I'm going to go a little tangent here, there is this sort of misrepresentation within the comments, because if 3 people say, you know, sell the wizard's staff, they may be the only 3 people of the 1,200 people watching, whatever it is, that want me to sell it. But because 3 people have voiced their opinions, it makes it seem like a bigger proportion, and so it might sway my choice in the matter a little bit too much, if you see what I mean. The same kind of happens with politics and people who vote. There's things like that. But so I'm going to try and keep it like in my thoughts, because even though a couple of you did say in the comments that I should keep the wizard staff, I think I'm still going to sell it. The reason being is that Karish has never really been about items too much. Yes, he has used them, rings and amulets and shoes and all that kind of thing. In fact, he shouldn't be wearing these now, because he should have his better ones on, but never mind. When it comes to like things in his hands, I think he prefers to keep his hands free for things, and I don't think the staff does a lot for him. I know that it's like a status symbol, and that's what you guys are saying. Gameplay wise, I don't think it offers a lot, but it's a status symbol. All wizards should have a staff, one user said, and that's kind of a kind of sort of pigeonhole type of thing, you know, I kind of contrived, and I kind of want to stay away from that. And so I'm carrying that around. Weight 24. If I take that out, look at my encumbrance drop. So I think I would get more out of the money I get for it. I might only get 2 grand from it, but from that I can get like a summon Daedroth, maybe I can get a summon Clan Fear, I can get a bunch of other stuff, and I just think that it'll be far more useful and fulfilling, and yeah, useful is more the word, to have more spells, more summons to play around with, to you know, to make the gameplay more varied and everything, rather than just keep this for the sake of status, for the sake of all wizards must have a staff, for the sake of he kind of earned it, because he did earn it, you're right, but he earned it so he can do what he wants with it, and he sold, or he's going to probably sell the other stuff in there as well. He doesn't put much sentiment in items. He prefers knowledge, I think. And while I could definitely roleplay that he does want to keep it because he's earned it and it's kind of, you know, a neat staff and everything, and you know, I could definitely do that. I don't think many people would have an issue with that. I am going to sell it because I think that just the LP would be better for it moving forward, rather than just keep something for status that lets me levitate when I can levitate already. I'm going to sell it and then summon a bunch of, you know, Daedra and stuff like that instead. So, plus Karish has now come across these Daedra more often, so he'll want to increase his knowledge with that, and so I think that is probably more his kind of thing rather than just carrying a fancy staff around. And let's not forget that this is not the only stuff we're going to find. There are other stuffs in the game that are better, and by the time we get them, we may be able to carry them. We may be able to not need to sell them, if you like, because we have all the spells we need. So I'm going to sell it. And that kind of leads me on to my thoughts about the LP and basically why I went into that cave in the first place. So last session, I was getting a bit frustrated with the fact that we didn't have any gold any of the time, and you know, it's tricky to kind of balance traveling and gearing up for things. You know, I don't have any arrows to use the bow with, or at least not many. I don't have any now, obviously. So just buying basic supplies and everything, which I want to keep doing, and resting in inns was such a big sap on resources, and just getting around. So I wanted him to catch a break, really, in terms of wealth and being able to progress in terms of spells and, well, not equipment really, but we have more equipment now anyway with these magical rings, which is really nice because that's going to help against Dwemer ghosts. And also when these outlive their uselessness, I can sell them for a couple hundred gold. That one at least. So, you know, pretty nice. So I kind of wanted to progress in terms of like what he could do. So I decided that he would have to go on a journey, and we did decide like a little while ago that when storms hit, he would try and retreat into a cave rather than braving it. I think that kind of works pretty well. So the only kind of issue with that is that of course when I was in our run, there was a storm blowing outside for a couple hours, and Karish probably would have waited for that to blow over. But so maybe I could have waited a day, but he kind of went out in it because I wanted to get on with things, as I kind of mentioned in the LP. And you know, I think the reasoning was pretty good. That if we look at the map that we've got of the island, we have made this journey between Seydenim and Balmora quite a bit. So this journey is half the distance, you know, 2/3 the distance. So why not make that? You know, there's absolutely no. I mean, I've gone to Aldrun to Nices up there, so there's no reason why I couldn't walk here. So it's not like Karish has never walked anywhere before. And I figured that if it rains or if there's a storm, then I'll go in the nearest place. And lo and behold, it did. Now, I didn't know I would go into that particular ruin. Even when I saw it, I didn't know it was that ruin. Until I saw the Wizard's Staff, I didn't realise what ruin I was in. Now, I've played this game extensively, as you know, and know a lot about it. But I didn't realise that I'd sort of gone back over on myself, because the ruin's about here, isn't it? And I thought I was over here somewhere, but it turns out I'd gone down here and then across here, and so we kind of ended up there when I thought I was down here. So I didn't know it was the ruin that it was. So which is sort of like near the fort. But I was really glad it was that ruin, because it does have some nice loot in it, and we did catch a break. We got some gold, and that's why, again, I don't want to sell this. I do want to sell the staff, because that was the whole point, to get some gold and get more summons. So now we get to play with well, we haven't got them yet, but my next sort of thing on the list is a Clanfear and possibly something else as well. It kind of depends what we've got to play with. Maybe an Atronach. Now that we're unlocking the Telvanni movement, teleportation things, that'll save a lot of money as well in terms of just getting from here to here was costing me about 120 gold a time, 180 whatever it was. That's a lot of gold to be spending. Now I can just do the whole warping thing. Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I really like that. So we've got that. As we're doing quests for the Mages Guild as well, kind of like, you know, doing Edwina favors here, I may well increase my ranking in the Mages Guild enough that I can use their teleportations for free as well. Now, I don't want it to seem like I'm like power playing this too much, but these things are in my head all the time because I've got to mitigate the whole role-playing thing with the gameplay thing. And I can't very much, you know, roleplay Karish if he's got no money. The whole point is that he's always got some money to spend, and somehow, some way, he's always had that. He's always had enough money for you know, a bed and some food, and he'll just spend all of his money, assuming that he'll get some more. And that has happened, but I know that's not going to happen forever, because now the rewards are becoming more akin to items and things like that, and kind of spells, rather than... Oh, hello! How you doing? Do you mind? I was doing something up here. Yeah, so there's less money in the game, because the game now assumes that you've got lots of it, so you don't need 200 gold for a quest. You need a magical ring, or you need something else, you know, just to vary things about a bit. So that's why I did what I did to give us a break. So even if I run out of money again, which I may well do, I don't think I'm going to buy any clothes, honestly. But even if I run out of money again, I'll at least know that Karish can handle himself as long as he's got the magicka to do so. So there's a couple of things on our shopping list, and I'm just going to start wandering around for no reason. We need a way to restore magicka, which I can do at the Mages Guilds if I wander around there. We need a couple of summons, and they're at Tel Renora down here. And I do need to get there. We do, of course, now have the gold to get there as well, which is nice, but we can't do it from here. We'll have to do it from Vivek or Sadrith Mora. So, yeah, we've got a couple of things we need to buy with the gold that we'll get. Now let's just... I'm going to... a little bit of research. Because there's a shop here, isn't it? And I'm sure this is a modded shop, so it's got plenty of gold. And he'll probably buy this... or she will buy this... oh, no, actually, you don't have much gold. And then we'll return to this. Is this overpowered? I'm gonna check. I am gonna check. Because if we use this robe... because people say it's overpowered, and I am not... That is the wrong spell. That is the wrong one. I thought there was one that restored magicka. Wait a minute. What am I doing? That's resist magicka. Has it gone? Part of my alchemy. That's quite good actually, a constant. Oh, there's that. Yeah, that's quite a lot. I tell you what, we'll just give ourselves a very raw deal here, but there we go. So not that one. Sorry, my mistake. This one. So restore magicka and fortify alteration. Now the fortify alteration doesn't really do a whole lot for us, but wait. I can't use it that much. I don't know. I am considering this robe, I must admit. But there's also the Drake's Pride as well. I don't know. Oop. It's kind of a nice robe as well, isn't it? Because his magicka doesn't go up that much. You know, it increases magicka by 1 point. So it increases 30 points of magicka. Which is nothing. You know, it's like 1/10 of his magicka. So it may well just be another little thing that I can use. You know, when I sort of looked at it, I thought, well, it's not actually that overpowered, and it would be really useful, considering we have no money, and considering we don't have a whole lot of Magicka potions at our disposal. The Mages Guild does have some, but that's been nerfed. So rather than 10, there are 2. So, you know, but it's something that I'm kind of considering. Maybe not now, but it is in my head. It is in my head, I have to admit, that there's a robot there that can somewhat allay my Magicka worries. I mean, a charge of that won't even summon Squishy twice. So, is it really that overpowered? I'll let you guys decide sort of in the comments. Anyway, that will do for the whole discussion thing. But just so you know that I'm considering beefing Karish up a little bit, and getting him a little more powerful, because he'll still be really squishy. But I just need to have a bit more versatility about him, I think. Well, not versatility, but just not be so on the edge all the time, I guess. Not be so reliant on being stocked up all the time, I suppose. You know what I mean? But yeah, I shall think on it. Anyways, so we're going to read some stuff now. So let's find a quiet place to do so. There will be a jump cut, and then we'll get reading. But any thoughts or anything like that you guys have, please let me know, because your thoughts do, and your suggestions do influence how I think about things. Even though I do try and balance it with what I think, I want and what most people want. Because, like I said, just because I get like 2 or 3 comments generally doesn't mean that's what everybody thinks. So I have to bear that in mind as well. And also, I overrule everything at the end of the day, but I do like hearing your opinions, even if sometimes I do decide, actually, no, I'm going to do it this way. As in terms of, the staff. But don't worry, I won't swap it for this. Even though that would be quite a good deal. Thinking about it. That would happen this time. I need some more summons and everything. Okay then, right. Reading time. Okay, I decided to go back inside because it's a lot quieter inside than outside. So we shall start with the 36 Sermons of Vivek. Sermon 4. The simulacrum of Nechiman's wife, who carried the egg of Vivek within it, went back to looking for the lands of the Indoril. Along the journey, many more spirits came to see it and offer instructions to its son-daughter, the future glorious invisible warrior poet of Vardenfell, Vivek. A troop of spirits called the Lobbyists for the Coincidence Guild appeared. Vivek understood the challenge immediately. Instead, the popular notion of God kills happenstance. The head of the Lobbyists, whose name is forgotten, tried to defend the concept's existence. He said, saying something at the same time can be magical. Vivek knew that to retain his divinity, that he must make a strong argument against luck. He said, it is not the sudden revelation of corresponding conditions and disparate elements that gel at the moment of the coincidence. It is not, right, I'll start again. It is not the sudden revelation of corresponding conditions and disparate elements that gel at the moment of the coincidence, one of the prerequisites to being, in fact, coincidental. Synchronicity comes out of repeated coincidences at the lowest level. Further examination shows it is the utter power of the sheer number of coincidences that leads one to the idea that synchronicity is guided by something more than chance. Therefore, synchronicity ends up invalidating the concept of the coincidental, even though they are the symptomatic signs that bring it to the surface. Thus was coincidence destroyed in the land of the Velothi. Then an old bone of the earth rose up before the simulacrum of the Nechiman's wife and said, if you are to be born a ruling king of the world, you must you confuse it with new words? Set me unto pondering. Very well, Veriax said. Let me talk to you of the world, which I share with mystery and love. Who is her capital? Have you taken the scenic route of her cameo? I have, lightly, in secret, missing candles because they're on the untrue side, and run my hand along the edge of a shadow made from 103 divisions of warmth, and left no proof. At this, the old bone folded into itself 20 times until it became akin to milk, which Vivek drank, becoming a ruling king of the world. Finally, the Chancellor of Exactitude appeared, and he was perfect to look upon from every angle. Vivek understood the challenge immediately, and said, "Certitude is for the puzzle box logicians and girls of white glamour who harbour it on their own time. I am a letter written in uncertainty." The Chancellor bowed his head and smiled 50 different and perfect ways all at once. He pulled the astrolabe of the universe from his robe and broke it in half, handing both halves of the egg image of Vivek. Vivek laughed and said, "Yes, I know. The slave labour of the senses is as selfish as polar ice, and worsens when energies are spent on a life others regard as fortunate. To be a ruling king, I will have to suffer much that cannot be suffered, and to weigh matters that no astrolabe or compass can measure." The ending of the words is Amsivi. Well, there you go. Good old Vivek. Right, next. So we've done that one. Incidents at Necron. Oh, it's a long one. "The situation simply is this," said Phalaxith, his face as chiseled, as resolute as any statue. "Everyone knows that the cemetery west of the city is haunted by some malevolent beings, and has been for many years now. The people have come to accept it. They bury their dead by daylight, and are away before Master and Secunda have risen and the evil comes forth. The only victims to fall prey to the devils within are the very stupid and the outsiders." "It sounds like a natural solution to filtering out the undesirables then," laughed Nitra, a tall middle-aged woman with cold eyes and thin lips. "Where is the gold in saving them?" "From the temple. They're reopening a new monastery near the cemetery, and they need the land cleansed of evil. They're offering a fortune, so I accepted the assignment with the caveat that I would assemble my own team to split the reward. That's why I've sought you each out. From what I've heard, you, Nitra, are the best bladesman in Morrowind." Bladeswoman. Nitra smiled her unpleasant best. "And you, Osmic, are a renowned burglar, though never once imprisoned." The bald-pated young man stammered as if to refute the charges before grinning back. "I'll get you in where you need to go, but then it's up to you to do what you need to do. I'm no combatter. Anything Nitra and I can't handle, I'm sure Mizatha will prove her mettle," Phalaxith said, turning to the fourth member of the party. "She comes on very good references as a sorceress of great power and skill." Mizatha was a picture of innocence, round-faced and wide-eyed. Nitra and Osmic looked at her uncertainly, particularly watching her fearful expressions, as Phalaxith described the nature of the creatures haunting the cemetery. It was obvious she had never faced any adversary other than man and mer before. If she survived, they thought to themselves, it would be very surprising. As the foursome trudged towards the graveyard at dusk, they took the opportunity to quiz their new teammate. "Vampires are filthy creatures," said Nitra, "disease-ridden, you know. They say off to the west they'll indiscriminately pass on their curse together with a number of other afflictions. They don't do that here so much, but still, you don't want to leave their wounds untreated. I take it you know something of the spells of restoration, if one of us gets bit." "I know a little, but I'm no healer," said Misatha meekly. "More of a battle mage?" asked Osmic. "I can do a little damage if I'm really close, but I'm not very good at that either. I'm more of an illusionist, technically." Nitra and Osmic looked at one another with naked concern as they reached the gates of the graveyard. There were moving shadows, stray spectres among the rack and ruins, crumbled paths stacked on top of crumbled paths. It wasn't a maze of a place. It could have been any dilapidated graveyard, but even without looking at the tombstones, it did have one very noticeable feature. Filling the horizon was the mausoleum of a minor Cyrodiilic official from the Second Era. Slightly exotic, but still harmonising with the Dunmer graves in a complementary style called Decay. I like that. It's a surprisingly useful school, whispered Misatha defensively. You see, it's all concerned with Magicka's ability to alter the perception of objects without changing their physical compositions. Removing sensual data, for example, to cast darkness, or remove sound or smell from the air. It can help by... A red-haired vampire woman leapt out of the shadows in front of them, knocking Phalaxith on his back. Nitra quickly unsheathed her sword, but Misatha was faster. In a wave of her hand, the creature stopped, frozen, her jaws scant inches from Phalaxith's throat. Phalaxith pulled out his own blade and finished her off. That's illusion? Asked Osmic. Certainly, smiled Misatha. Nothing changed in the vampire's form, except his ability to move. Like I said, it's a very useful skill. The four climbed up over the paths to the front gateway of the crypt. Osmic snapped the lock and disassembled the poison trap. The sorceress cast a wave of light down the dust-choked corridors, banishing the shadows and drawing the inhabitants out. Almost immediately they were set upon by a pair of vampires, howling and screaming in a frenzy of bloodlust. The battle was joined, so no sooner were the first two vampires felled than their reinforcements attacked. They were mighty warriors of uncanny strength and endurance, but Misatha's paralysis spell and the weaponry of Phalaxith and Nitra clove through their ranks. Even Osmic aided the battle. They're crazy, gasped Misatha when the fight finally ended and she could capture breath. Quara, the most savage of the vampire bloodlines, said Phalaxith. We have to find and exterminate each and every one. Delving into the crypts, the group hounded out more of the creatures. Though they varied in appearance, they each seemed to rely on their strength and claws for attacking, and subtlety did not seem to be the style of any. When the entire mausoleum had been searched and every creature within destroyed, the four finally made their way to the surface. It was only an hour until sunrise. There was no frenzied scream or howl. Nothing rushed forward towards them. The final attack, when it happened, was so unlike the others that the questers were taken utterly by surprise. The ancient creature awaited until the four were almost out of the cemetery, talking amiably, making plans for spending their share of the reward. He judged carefully who would be the greatest threat, and then launched himself at the sorceress. Had Phalaxith not turned his attention back from the gate, she would have been ripped into shreds before she had a chance to scream. The vampire locked Misatha across a stone, its claws raking across her back, but stopped its assault in order to block a blow from Phalaxith's sword. It accomplished its maneuver in its own brutal way by tearing the warrior's arm from its socket. Osmic and Nitra set on it, but they found themselves in a losing battle. Only when Misatha had pulled herself back up from behind the pile of rocks, weak and bleeding, that the fight turned. She cast a magical ball of flame at the creature, which was so enraged that it turned her back on her. Nitra saw her opening and took it, beheading the vampire with a stroke of her sword. So you do know some spells of destruction, like you said Nitra. And a few spells of healing too, she said weakly, but I can't save Phalaxith. The warrior died in the bloodied dust before them. The three were quiet as they travelled across the dawn-lit countryside back towards Necrom. Misatha felt the throb of pain in her back intensify as they walked, and then a gradual numbness like ice spreading through her body. I need to go to a healer and see if I've been diseased, she said as they reached the city. Meet us at the Moth and Fire tomorrow morning, said Nitra. We'll go to the temple and get our reward and split it there. 3 hours later, Osmic and Nitra sat in their room at the tavern, happily counting and recounting the gold marks. Split 3 ways, it was a very comfortable sum. But if the healers can't do anything for Misatha, smiled Osmic dreamily. Some diseases can be insidious. Did you hear something in the hall? Asked Nitra quickly. But when she turned, there was no one there. She returned, shutting the door behind her. I'm sure Misatha will survive if she went straight to the healer, but we could leave tonight with the gold. Let's have one last drink to our poor sorceress, said Osmic, leading Nitra out of the room towards the stairs down. Nitra laughed. Those spells of illusion won't help her track us down, as useful as she keeps saying they are. Paralysis, light, silence, not so good when you don't know where to look. They closed the door behind them. Invisibility is another spell of illusion, said Misata's disembodied voice. The gold on the table rose in the air and vanished from sight as she slipped it into her purse. The door again opened and closed, and all was silent until Osmic and Nitra returned a few minutes later. Oh, nice. Well done, Masid. Oh, that's good. That really just show the awesomeness of illusion. And that's why I want Karish to get an invisibility spell, because think how useful that'll be. Sadly, it's freaking expensive, but our illusion has been going up a little bit. Anyway, gameplay. Bad, bad, bad. Okay, next book. And the next book is The Mystery of Talara, Part 3. Sadly, it's Part 3, so spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't watched or read 1 and 2, which is like all of us, I think. So, Norbooth was leaving his favourite pub in Camlawn, the Breaking Branch, when he heard someone calling his name. His was not the sort of name that could be mistaken for another. He turned and saw Lord Errol, the royal battle mage from the palace, emerge from the darkness of the alley. "My lord," said Norbooth with a pleasant smile. "I'm surprised to see you out this evening, Norbooth," grinned Lord Errol with a most unpleasant smile. "I have not seen you and your master very much since the millennial celebration, but I understand you've been very busy." "What I've been wondering is what you've been busy doing." "Protecting the imperial interests in Camlawn is busy work, my lord, but I cannot imagine you would be interested in the minutiae details, I guess. I never this thing teaches me words of the ambassador's appointments. But I am, said the battle mage, especially as the ambassador has begun acting most mysteriously, most undiplomatically lately, and I understand he has taken one of the whores from the flower festival into his house. I believe her name is Gaina. Norbooth shrugged. He's in love, I would imagine, my lord. It can make men act very strangely, as I'm sure you've heard before. She is a most comely wench, laughed Lord Errol. Have you noticed how much she resembles the late Princess Talara? I have only been in Camelon for 15 years, my lord. I never saw her late majesty. How I could understand it if he had taken to writing poetry, but that man in love spends his day. But what man in love spends his days in the kitchens of the palace talking to old servants? It hardly sounds like a molten passion to me, even based on my limited experience. Lord Errol rolled his eyes. And what is this business he has now in? What was the name of that village? Umbington, replied Norbooth, and immediately wished he hadn't. Lord Errol was too canny an actor to reveal it, but Norbooth knew that in the pit of his stomach that the battle mage did not even know Lord Strail had left the capital. He had to get away and let the ambassador know, but there was still a game to be carefully played. He's not leaving for there until tomorrow. I believe it's just to put a stamp on some deed that needs an imperial seal. Is that all? How tedious for the poor fellow. I suppose I'll see him when he returns then, Lord Errol bowed. Thank you for being so informative. Farewell. The moment the royal battle mage turned the corner, Norbooth leapt onto his horse. He had drunk 1 or 2 ales too many, but he knew he must find his way to Umbington before Lord Errol's agents did. He galloped east out of the capital, hoping there were signs along the road. Seated in a tavern that smelled of mildew and sour beer, Lord Strail marvelled at how the Emperor's ancient lady Brisinia always found the most public places for her most private conferences. It was harvest time in Umbington, and all the field hands were drinking away their meagre wages in the noisiest of fashions. He was dressed appropriately for the venue, rough trousers and a simple peasant's vest, but he still felt conspicuous. In comparison to his 2 female companions, he certainly was. The woman to his right was used to frequenting the low places of Daggerfall as a common prostitute. Lady Brisinia, to his left, was even more clearly in her element. By what name would you prefer I call you? Lady Britannia asked solicitously. I am used to the name Gaina, though that may have to change, was her reply. Of course, it may not. Gaina the Whore may be the name written on my grave. I will see to it that there is no attempt on your life like the flower festival, Lord Strail frowned. But without the Emperor's help, I won't be able to protect you forever. The only permanent solution is to capture those who would do you harm and then raise you to your proper station. Do you believe my story? Gaina turned to Lord Britannia. I have been the Emperor's chief agent in High Rock for many years now, and I have heard few stranger tales. If your friend the Ambassador hadn't investigated and discovered what he has, I would have dismissed you outright as a madwoman. Britannia laughed, forcing a smile onto Gaina's face to match. But now, yes, I do believe you. Perhaps that makes me the madwoman. Will you help us? Asked Lord Strail simply. It is a tricky business interfering with the affairs of the provincial kingdoms. Lady Britannia looked into the depths of her mug thoughtfully. Unless there is a threat to the Empire itself, we find it is best not to meddle. What we have in your case is a very messy assassination that happened 20 years ago and its aftermath. If His Imperial Majesty involved itself in every bloody hiccup in the succession in each of his 1,000 vassal kingdoms, he would never accomplish anything for the greater good of Tamriel. I understand, murmured Gaina. When I remembered everything, who I was and what happened to me, I resolved to do nothing about it. In fact, I was leaving Camelon and going back home to Daggerfall when I saw Lord Strail again. He was the one who began his quest to resolve this, not me. And when he brought me back, I only wanted to see my cousin to tell her who I was, but he forbade me. It would have been too dangerous, growled Strail. We still didn't know yet the depths of the conspiracy. Perhaps we never will. I'm sorry. I'll always find myself giving long explanations to the short questions. When Lord Strail asked if I would help, I should have begun by simply saying yes. Lady Britannia laughed at the change of Lord Strail's and Gaina's expression. I will help you, of course, but for this to turn out well, you must accomplish two things to the Emperor's satisfaction. First, you must prove with absolute certainty who is the power behind this plot you have uncovered. You must get someone to confess. And secondly, said Lord Strail, nodding, we must prove that this is a matter worthy of His Imperial Majesty's consideration, and not merely a minor local concern. Lord Strail, Lady Britannia, and the woman who called herself Gaina discussed how to accomplish their goals for a few hours more. When it was agreed that they had what had to be done, Lady Britannia took her leave to find her ally, Prosecus. Stale and Gaina set off to the west towards Camelon. It was not long after beginning their ride through the woods that they heard the sounds of galloping hoofbeats far up ahead. Lord Strail unsheathed his sword and signalled for Gaina to position her horse behind him. At that moment they were attacked on all sides. It was an ambush. 8 men, armed with axes, had been lying in wait. Lord Strail quickly yanked Gaina from her horse, pulling her behind him, and made a brief deft motion with his hands. A ring of flame materialized around them and rushed outward, striking their assailants. The men roared in pain and dropped to their knees. Lord Strail jumped the horse over the closest one and galloped at full speed westwards. I thought you were an ambassador, not a mage, laughed Gaina. I still believe there are times for diplomacy, replied Lord Strail. The horse and rider they had heard before met them on the road. It was Norbuth. My lord, it's the royal battle mage. He found out you two were in Umbington. With considerable ease, I might add. Lord Errol's voice boomed out of the woods. Norbuth, Gaina, and Lord Strail scanned the dark trees, but they showed nothing. The battle mage's voice seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere. I'm sorry, my lord, groaned Norbuth. I tried to warn you as soon as I could. In your next life, perhaps you'll remember not to trust your plans to a drunkard, laughed Lord Errol. He had them in his sight, and the spell was unleashed. Norbuth saw him first, by the light of the ball of fire that leapt from his fingertips. Later, Lord Errol was to wonder to himself what the fool had intended to do. Perhaps he was rushing forward to pull Lord Strail out of the path. Perhaps he was trying to flee the path of destruction, and had simply moved left when he should have moved right. Perhaps, as unlikely as it seemed, he was willing to sacrifice himself to save his master. Whatever the reason, the result was the same. He got in the way. There was an explosion of energy that filled the night, and an echoing boom that shook birds from the trees for a mile around. On the few square feet where Narbuth and his horse had stood was nothing but black grass. They had been reduced to less than vapour. Gaina and Lord Strail were thrown back. Their horse, when it recovered its senses, galloped away as fast as it could. In the lingering growing aura of the spell's detonation, Lord Strail looked straight into the woods and into the wild eyes of the battle mage. "Damn," said Lord Errol, and began to run. The ambassador jumped to his feet and pursued. "That was impressive use of magicka, even for you," said Lord Strail as he ran. Don't you know well enough not to use ranged spells unless you are certain your target won't be blocked? I never thought... That idiot!" Lord Errol was struck from behind and knocked to the wet forest floor before he had a chance to finish his lamentation. "It doesn't matter what you thought," said Lord Strail calmly, flipping the battle mage around and pinning his arms to the ground with his knees. "I'm not a battle mage, but I know enough not to use my entire reserve on your little ambush. Perhaps it's a matter of philosophy. As a government agent, I feel inclined towards conversation." "What are you going to do?" whispered Lord Errol. "Narbuth was a good man, one of the best, and so I'm going to hurt you quite a lot." The ambassador made a slight movement with his hands and began to glow brightly. That's a certainty. How much more I'm going to hurt you after that depends on what you tell me. I want to hear all about the former Duke of Oloin." "What do you want to know?" Lord Errol screamed. "Let's start with everything," replied Lord Strail with perfect patience. "Well, poor Narbuth, but good on Lord Strail, and hopefully Gaina gets what she deserves in terms of her lost lands or whatever it was, her lost title. Okay, is there another? I think there is. Okay, not that one, not that one. So that was book 3, so maybe there is more to that one, that last one. Okay. The Armourer's Challenge. Okay. 300 years ago, when Kateria became Empress, the first and only Dunmer to rule all of Tamriel, she faced opposition from the Imperial Council. Even after she convinced them that she would be the best regent to rule the Emperor while her husband Pelagius, there's that word again, sought treatment for his madness, there was still conflict. In particular, from the Duke of Fugetto, Thane Ming Lumre, who took particular delight in exposing all of the Empress's lack of practical knowledge. In this particular instance, Kateria, henceforth known as Kat, and the Council were discussing the unrest in Black Marsh and the massacre of Imperial troops outside the village of Anias. The sudden swampland and the sweltering climate, particularly in summertime, would endanger the troops if any wore their usual armour. "I know a very clever armourer," said Kat. "His name is Khazadar, an Argonian who knows the environments our army will be facing. I knew him in Vivek when he was a slave to the master armourer there, before he moved to the Imperial City as a freedman. We should have him design armour and weaponry for the campaign." Ming gave a snort, barking laugh. "She wants a slave to design the armour and weaponry for our troops. Silurius Sacus is the finest armourer in the Imperial City. Everybody knows that. After much debate, it was finally decided to have both armourers contend for the commission. The council also elected 2 champions of equal power and prowess, Nandor Beraid and Raf alias Eul, to battle using the arms and armaments of the real competitors in the struggle. Whichever champion won, the armourer who supplied him would earn the Imperial Commission. It was decided that Beriad would be outfitted by Hazadir and Eul by Sacus. The fight was scheduled to commence in 7 days. Cerolius Sacus began work immediately. He would have preferred more time, but he recognised the nature of the test. The situation in Amanius was urgent. The Empire had to select their armourer quickly, and once selected, the preferred armourer had to act swiftly and produce the finest armour and weaponry for the Imperial army in Black Marsh. It wasn't just the best armor they were looking for, it was the most efficient. Sackers had only begun steaming the half-inch strips of black virgin oak to bend into bands for the flanges of the armor joints when there was a knock on his door. His assistant, Fandius, ushered in the visitor. It was a tall reptilian of common markings, a dull green fringed hood, bright black eyes, and a dull brown cloak. It was Hadazir, Cat's preferred armourer. I wanted to wish you the best of luck on the... Is that ebony? It was indeed. Sackers had brought the finest quality ebony weave available in the Imperial City as soon as he had heard of the competition and had begun the process of smelting it. Normally, it was a 6-month procedure refining the ore, but he hoped that a massive convection oven stoked by white flames born of magicka would shorten the operation to 3 days. Sackers proudly pointed out the other advances in his armory. The acidic lime pools to sharpen the blade of the daikatana to an unimaginable degree of sharpness, the akavari forge and tongs he would use to fold the ebony back and forth upon itself. Hazadir laughed. Have you been to my armory? 2 tiny smoke-filled rooms. The front is a shop, the back is filled with broken armies, some hammers and a forge. That's it. That's your competition for the millions of gold pieces in Imperial Commission. I'm sure the Empress has some reason to trust you to outfit her troops, said Sackers kindly. He had, after all, seen the shop and knew what Hazadir said was true. It was a pathetic workshop in the slums, fit only for the lowest of adventurers to get their iron daggers and cuirasses repaired. Sackers had decided to make the best quality regardless of the inferiority of his rival. It was his way and how he became the best armourer in the Imperial City. Out of kindness, and more of a bit of pride, Sackers showed Hazadir how, by contrast, things should be done in a real professional armory. The Argonian acted as an apprentice to Sackers, helping him refine the ebony ore and to pound it and fold it when it cooled. Over the next several days, they worked together to create the beautiful daikatana with an edge honed sharp enough to trim a mosquito's eyebrows, enchanted with flames along its length by one of the Imperial battle mages, as well as a suit of armour of bound wood, leather, silver and ebony to resist the winds of oblivion. On the day of the battle, Sackers, Hazadir and Fandius finished polishing the armour and brought in Raphelius Eul for the fitting. Hazadir left only then, realising that Nandor Bereid would be at his shop shortly to be outfitted. The 2 warriors met before the Empress and Imperial Council in the arena, which had been flooded slightly to simulate the swampy conditions of Black Marsh. From the moment Sackers saw Eul in his suit of heavy ebony and blazing daikatana, and Berend in his collection of dusty rusted lizard scales and a spear from Hazadir's shop, he knew who would win, and he was right. The first blow from the daikatana lodged into Berend's soft shield, and there was no metal trim to deflect it. Before Eul could pull his sword back, Berend let go of the now flaming shield, still stuck on the sword, and poked at the joints of Eul's ebony armour with his spear. Eul finally retrieved his sword from the ruined shield and slashed at Bereid, but his slight armour was scaled and angled, and the attacks rolled off onto the water, extinguishing the daikatana's flames. When Bereid struck at Eul's feet, he fell into the churned mud and was unable to move. The Empress, out of mercy, called a victor. Hazadir received the commission and thanked his knowledge of Argonian battle tactics and weaponry how to best combat them. He designed implements of war that brought down the insurrection of Amandis. Cat won the respect of the council, and even begrudgingly that of Thane Ming. Sackers went to Morrowind to learn what Hazadir learned there and was never heard from again. Oof, there we go. I do believe there's a couple of other little things we have to read. Yes, this. So I shall do that next. Okay, the last thing we have to read is this. Yeah, which is the notes we got off the Dunmadu last time. So this is main quest stuff that maybe we should put at the start, but I might put a timestamp in it or something, because this actually is relevant to, you know, the direct story of the game. So yeah, this dude prepared these notes for us because we gave him a nice book on poetry. The Ashlanders are the direct descendants of the Aldmeri peoples who followed the prophet Veloth onto the lands we now call Morrowind. The Ashlanders retain the modest nomadic life and simple ancestor worship of their forebears, and despite the short lives and decadent worships of the settled great houses cultures, the wastes are harsh and unforgiving, and we are hard people. But there is a beauty and honour in our simple lives, and the snobs of the temple and great houses are fools to dismiss us as true as crude savages. Most Ashlanders wish all foreigners and their false gods could be driven from Morrowind. At the very least, Ashlanders wish the foreign devils would leave them in peace. Ashlanders think it is shameful to attack unarmed persons, but they will kill without hesitation. Yeah, so we've seen this before because this is in his dialogue. Nor an armed person who offends them or their clan laws. No Ashlander is fool enough to make war against the Empire. However, such war might be won. Many Ashlander might cheerfully give their lives to win such a war. So yeah, that was directly in his... he was just reading out from the text when I asked him about it. So this is courtesy. This is challenges, which we've seen in the actual LP. So the worship. All Ashlanders in a tribe, young and small, are born to the ancestor cult of their clan. The Nerevarine cult is different, though. It is a very small cult with only a few wise women and the gift of prophecy, and a few warrior heroes who guard and protect the seers. Sulmantul, Ashkan of the Ursh Ikalu, is the warrior protector of the cult, and Nibani Mesa, also of the Ursh Ikalu, is the oracle seer of the cult and Nerevarine cult. They worship the great Ashkan and Hortator Nerevar under Star, who in ages past destroyed the evil godless dwarves and banished the treacherous Dagoth and his foul hosts beneath Red Mountain. Interesting, just a minute. I'll get to that. I'll go back to that. The cult is of small consequence in Ashlander worship, and only among the Urshalaku do his followers have any influence. Other Ashlander tribes share the sentiments of the cult, but regard the Nerevarine prophecies with superstition and skepticism. So, I've always been told that the Dwemer aren't dwarves, but the Nerevar joined together with a bunch of people and destroyed the dwarves, the Dwemer, at the Battle of Red Mountain. So, dwarves... In Nerevarine prophecies, it is said that the prophecies foretell the return of a reincarnated Nerevar who shall drive the foreigners from the Ashlands, and who shall cast down the false gods of the temple and restore true worships of the ancestors. It is a dream that would appeal to every Ashlander, but many Ashlanders think it is a silly ancient legend and little more. And the Ursh Il Aku are the Ashlanders of the northern Ashlands of the West Gath, in the northwest of Ardenfell. Sulmantul is their chief and a brave and respected war leader, a warrior protector of the Nerevarine cult. Nibani is the wise woman, a deep and shrewd counsellor and seer of the Nerevarine cult. The Ursh Ilaku camp moves with the herds, but usually lies close to the Sea of Ghosts, north of the village of Maigan, the northern coast of the northern Ashlands. In fact, it never moves, it's always right there. Alright, I believe that is it. We get an airship plans I can't look at. We can actually drop some of these now as well, now that I'm kind of here. This is all kind of stuff that... not the plain paper, but... these notes we don't need. I do need them actually, because I need to give them to Caius. Actually, I'll pick that out as well, just in case I need them as well for some reason. But, oh yeah, and there's the mission. Yeah, I don't need that anymore. Okay then, lovely. Right, so a lot of reading there, as we knew. Now I can sell all these books as well and remove even more.
I'd be happy to talk.
I need
pleasure, really.
I need that. Even more encumbrance from our load, I guess. So, right, I shall see you guys next time. Grand adventures awaits. We are going to go shopping. Huzzah! So hopefully I'll see you then. See you then, if not before. Take care and toodaloo.